Now that we have completed the installation of the GData Management Server, we can now move on to setting up your security environment. So the first thing we'll do is open the GData Administrator that was installed with the management server. To log in, use your domain credentials. Now the first time you log into the administrator with a new installation, you will be prompted to run through the server setup wizard. If you go ahead and hit next on this, it will check your network and give you a list of all available computers, including the server that the management is installed on. So let's go ahead and choose the systems that we want GData installed on, which in our case, we're going to do the Windows 7 machine that I have set up in a virtual environment. And since I want GData enabled on this client, all I have to do is hit Enable. If there are any computers not listed that you would like to install GData on, you can type them at the bottom. And click Enable. So let's go ahead and hit Next again. Now, if this box is checked, it will install GData automatically on any computers that you enable. Now here, it pulls the access data that was given to you during your installation of the management server, so you do not have to enter it again. Of course, you want to choose the region that you're in. Also, you want to set up the update intervals for your virus database and your program files. What I recommend on the virus database is to run it hourly, since GData does release definition updates if there's a large threat multiple times a day. Now, the program files you may or may not want to update automatically depending on how many systems you've got and if there's any adverse effects that could come from updating. If you do not mind and you do want the updates to the program files, which the program files are the program files for the clients, not the actual management server. So we can go ahead and schedule that too as a weekly check. Go ahead and hit Next again. This is where you set up your email notifications that come from the server to whoever is administering your network. So the first thing we have to do, if you notice there are no recipient groups, we have to set up a recipient group for the emails. So at the top here, we are given the option to put in who is sending the emails. So we will do a general email inside our company, and then set up, of course, the SMTP server that we want the management server to use to send these emails. If you need SMTP authentication, you can actually go in here and set this up. So if I want my credentials to be used for this email to be sent, if my SMTP server requires it, I enter it here and hit OK. And then down at the bottom, we can set up the group that we would like the emails to actually be sent to. You can set up multiple groups or just one if you would like. So we're going to set up an admin group and enter in the email address that we want to receive the emails. And go ahead and hit OK again. And now at the top, I can choose the admin group to receive my emails, which I can limit to however many I want within a time period. The default is 1 mail in 30 minutes, which is perfectly fine. And you can tell it what to send you. Virus results will let you know if there's any reported threats on your network. The status data means that if a system has not connected and communicated with the management server in 2 days, then it will send you an alert. If clients are reporting problems with their virus, database, or program files, it will also send you a daily alert to saying virus database is corrupted. Now, normally the virus database being corrupted is fixed on the next update, but it's nice to get the notification anyways. So go ahead and hit next again. If you are using the GData Android app, this is where you actually set up the password that the mobile clients will use to connect to your management server. So just go ahead and set up a password there, and you will also have to set up, this is completely separate, a Google Cloud Messaging Sender ID and API key to be able to send information directly to the Android devices, like the request to make a noise if it's lost or to wipe the device. So we can go ahead and hit finish, as that is the last step of the server setup wizard. Now it's going to ask me for credentials that can be used to install the clients on these systems. You choose your language, and if you want to include the firewall on the systems. You'll pop up a window that says Installation Overview that will give you the progress of any current installation jobs on your network. Now it of course tells us on the Server 2012 machine that a reboot is required after uninstalling a previous antivirus. Now, if for any reason you want to close this window, you can actually go into the client overview screen, right-click on one of the clients, and do installation overview again to see the status of the installation. Now, if you notice, it says that our installation was completed successfully, so we will be able to look at our Windows 7 machine. Now that the installation is complete, we can now see that the GData client is installed. And if you right click on the GData client, you will notice that there are no options that pop up because we actually can allow these or disallow these in the console. So let's switch back to our server and look at some of the options that we can set up on a client. So our client settings window is where we will go to actually look at what we can set up on the clients. Now these can be applied to a group or to an individual machine by however you want to set it up for your network. On the General tab, we have the basic settings for the security client, which include the updates that you would like the client to perform, as well as what the user can do on the client that is locally installed. So our updates are of course automatically done based on the interval that we did during the server setup. And then the client functions is where we can say to allow the user to either run a virus scan or to turn the monitor off and on or to update the client. You are given very granular control of what you want them to do. One thing that we always recommend turning on is to include the idle scan down at the bottom. Idle scan is a GData technology that will tell the computer to automatically start scanning if it detects that the computer is idle. So instead of setting up a daily scan, you can say just whenever the computer is not being used by someone, go ahead and start scanning. This does include a fingerprinting, so if it's been scanned before, of course the idle scan will not scan it again unless something has been changed. So this will speed up the time and use less resources on the system. So now that we've changed what we want to on this screen, we have the option to apply over here on the right. And if you'll notice the drop down, if we were actually had clicked on one of the individual clients on the left side, so say like Windows 7 Virtual, I could just apply it here to that one system, or I could apply it to the entire group. Since I'm already on the group, the apply will of course affect the entire group. So now let's look at the monitor options. This is where you can tell the GData clients how many engines to use and what to do if the monitor or the real-time protection finds a threat. So the default is of course to disinfect, and if it can't disinfect, then to quarantine the file. If it's an archive, like a zip or a RAR file, it will of course block the file access if a threat is found, and you can tell it to either check just on execution of a file or when a file is read or written to. This is also where you change where the monitor will check network drives. So if you have something else scanning your network drives, or if everything's on a server and the real-time protection is checking the server, you can disable the monitor network drive scan. Though with some of the new threats, this is something that can help protect your network. In here, you can also check the size that you want archives to be scanned at. Once they are over this size limit, they will no longer be scanned by the real-time protection. The default is 300K. You can change this to anything that you would like. Down at the bottom here, we can add in exceptions. So we can go ahead and hit edit and say I want to add a process called Chrome.exe. Now Chrome.exe will not be scanned by the real-time protection at all. Now you'll notice the exceptions here do not apply to the scanner. They only apply to the monitor, the real-time protection. Down at the bottom, you can also enable the behavior monitoring, which is like the heuristics to determine if something is negatively affecting your system based on how it is acting. Go ahead and apply the settings again. And next we'll look at the email tab. On the email tab, GData can scan your mail in one of two ways. Either it can scan all of your incoming email through the ports, or it can actually use a plugin in Microsoft Outlook that will scan the email that's inside the inbox. Now this is nice because Outlook already has full access to your PST or your OST file, so the scanning is a little quicker and easier on the system. You can also tell it to check outgoing mail. If you think for any reason someone could be sending email that is malicious from your network, you can check this so that all of these systems will check any email that is being sent to prevent stuff from leaving your network. Okay, apply those settings and we'll look at the web and IM filter. The web and IM filter will of course process all HTTP traffic through port 80 or port 443. This is also where you tell it what size of files you would like scanned by the web protection. So when you actually go and click a download, if say the download is 1 meg, right now it would be scanned before you can access it on your system. If it's over 2 megs with the current setting, it will not be scanned by the web protection. Basically, the way this works is GData basically puts it into its own environment, downloads the file, checks it, and then puts it where you want it saved to. You can also process IM traffic based on ports, and you can add in different ports for different IM clients. And there's also a add-in integration to Trillian and Microsoft Messenger that you can enable down at the bottom. The Bank Guard is something we always recommend enabling because this is your protection against man-in-the-middle SSL attacks. So if somebody is trying to listen in to your SSL traffic, this is the system that will attempt to detect that and prevent you from sending any information that could be compromised by something snooping on your traffic. So go ahead and apply those settings again and move to the anti-spam section. So the anti-spam basically will flag emails that it knows are spam or could be suspicious of being spam with text added into the subject line of your email when you receive it. And apply that. And let's look at the mobile settings here. Now this is for the Android client that you can send out for your employees to install. We won't cover that in this webinar in depth, but this is the section where you can actually manage those and tell it how to update and how to check everything on the device. Under the tasks window is where you can actually create jobs, scan jobs, if you want computers to be updated at a certain time, backed up, or restored if you do have the backup option. If you chose to install the firewall, this is the section in the program where you can actually control the firewall installations. Any computers that you did install it on down at the bottom here will say installed, and any settings that you choose in here will affect the locally installed firewall. Now you do have the option to allow people to make changes to this firewall if they are off your network. You can say allow the user to change the offsite configuration. So for any reason the client does not detect the management server, that gives the user the ability to make changes, like if they were at home or at a hotel and they needed to allow a certain program through. So on our report screen, anytime there's a detection on your network, if there's an update that failed, if a virus database or program file is corrupted, all of that will be shown in your reports. Since this is a new installation, we do not have any reports yet, but it will start to fill up. And when you right-click an item in the report, that gives you the ability to do various actions like quarantine something or delete it or restore it if it was a false positive. All of that can be done from this screen. So that is our basic introduction to the GData Administrator and getting your clients set up to the way that you want them. If you have any more in-depth questions, feel free to contact us and we will be more than happy to set up a one-on-one session with you where we can go more in depth.